What happens when your most deeply private, morally compromised life crisis is abruptly transformed into a multi-million-dollar spectator sport for the entire world to dissect? It is a level of psychological exposure that can completely break a person, forcing them into a defensive crouch that lasts for over a decade. But this week, one of the most notoriously private figures in the history of modern British and American tabloid culture decided to completely dismantle her own fortress of silence. Appearing on the Happy Mum podcast, Lauren Silverman finally spoke with absolute vulnerability about the explosive 2013 fallout that occurred when she discovered she was pregnant with entertainment tycoon Simon Cowell's son, Eric, while still legally married to Cowell's then-close friend, Andrew Silverman. For 12 long years, the public has only ever known this story through the sensationalized lens of paparazzi snapshots, courtroom divorce filings, and the biting wit of late-night television hosts. Hearing the actual person at the center of the storm articulate the sheer, suffocating terror of that exact moment changes the entire architecture of the narrative. It moves the conversation completely away from standard celebrity gossip and forces us to look at the brutal human collateral that gets left behind when a high-profile affair is thrust into the global spotlight. The first 90 seconds of this revelation lay bare a reality that was as chaotic as it was deeply painful. Silverman openly admitted that the moment the pregnancy test turned positive, her world didn't fill with the typical joy of impending motherhood. Instead, it instantly triggered a state of profound psychological paralysis. She was acutely aware that this child marked the definitive, highly public destruction of her 10-year marriage. The socialite described entering an immediate, prolonged state of fight-or-flight survival, waking up every single day just attempting to piece her psyche together so she wouldn't completely fall apart under the weight of global scrutiny. Suddenly, she wasn't just a private citizen navigating a broken relationship. She was on the cover of every major magazine on Earth, facing a level of intense, localized public shunning where every single room she walked into would instantly fall completely silent as people openly stared at her with deep, unmistakable judgment. Her primary instinct throughout the entire ordeal wasn't to defend her reputation or fight back against the media narrative, but to frantically shield and protect her eldest son, Adam, who was caught directly in the crossfire of his parents' highly publicized, incredibly messy dissolution. As these podcast clips have rapidly begun circulating across social media platforms over the last 72 hours, the public reaction has ignited a massive, incredibly polarizing debate regarding accountability, forgiveness, and the passage of time. On platforms like TikTok and YouTube, short clips of Silverman's interview have racked up millions of views, with the comment sections transforming into a fascinating battleground. A significant portion of the audience is expressing a surprising amount of empathy, praising her for refusing to offer up the typical, highly manicured public relations corporate apology. People are deeply compelled by her raw admission that she genuinely believed she deserved every single bit of the blame and judgment she received at the time, noting how rare it is for anyone connected to the upper echelons of celebrity culture to actively lean into their own culpability. Conversely, a highly vocal segment of the internet remains completely unswayed, pointing out the deeply uncomfortable reality that the affair didn't just break a marital vow, but entirely shattered a close, long-term friendship between Simon Cowell and Andrew Silverman. For these critics, no amount of reflective podcast commentary can fully erase the fundamental betrayal that served as the very foundation of this high-profile family unit. What makes the situation escalate so dramatically in the court of public opinion is the fascinating way it forces us to analyze the evolution of modern influencer and celebrity culture. In 2013, when the scandal initially broke, the media ecosystem was entirely dominated by traditional print tabloids and centralized entertainment news broadcasts that thrived on turning women into distinct, localized villains. There was no direct way for an individual caught in that machine to speak directly to the public without their words being heavily edited, repackaged, and weaponized for maximum click-through rates. By choosing to wait over a decade and utilizing the modern, long-form podcast medium, Silverman has effectively bypassed the traditional gatekeepers of media drama. This specific move highlights a massive shift in how public figures manage their long-term reputations. It shows a distinct understanding that modern digital audiences are far more likely to grant a sense of absolution to someone who delivers a slow, unscripted, an entirely unglamorous retrospective than someone who issues a polished, immediate statement through a publicist. When you look deeply at the actual commentary provided during the interview, the analytical depth of how she views her own past actions is genuinely striking. She explicitly stated that while she wishes with all her heart that she could magically go back in time to completely erase the immense hurt and pain she inflicted upon her ex-husband, her family, and her son, she firmly refuses to use the word regret when discussing the ultimate outcome. There is an incredibly complex, psychological line being walked here. She is simultaneously owning the absolute wreckage of the process while entirely validating the destination, reiterating her unwavering belief that she knew from the very beginning that Simon Cowell was the person she was profoundly meant to spend the rest of her life with. This exact duality is what is keeping the internet entirely captivated. It presents a highly mature, entirely non-tabloid look at human relationships that acknowledges that beautiful, lasting family dynamics can sometimes catch fire and emerge from the ashes of immense moral failure. This entire public reevaluation comes at a highly strategic moment for the couple's overall brand and reputation. Over the past year, the family has been actively executing a massive, highly deliberate transition into a much more grounded, legacy-focused public image. Silverman recently made the massive symbolic move of legally changing her last name to Cowell to completely solidify the unity of their household ahead of any official wedding ceremony, explicitly stating she no longer wished to carry the name of her ex-husband out of respect for everyone involved. Furthermore, she has transformed her intense, historically driven fear of public exposure into active political advocacy, heavily campaigning alongside the UK government to successfully implement massive age restriction laws for children on major social media apps. Even Simon Cowell himself has publicly credited the birth of their son as the definitive psychological turning point that saved him from a dark, incredibly empty abyss of pure workaholism. By framing their origin story not as a sleek, forgotten secret, but as a deeply painful, fully endured trial by fire, the couple is effectively rewriting their entire historical narrative. It leaves the global entertainment industry watching very closely to see if this raw, direct strategy of radical self-blame will permanently alter how audiences view the legacy of Hollywood's most notorious relationships, or if the ghost of a broken friendship will always linger quietly in the background of their impending walk down the aisle.